Oh boy. I love this place. This is the first place that we're filming outside of my studio. And I chose this place because this is the home and studio of Martin Kratochvil, who has been my musical partner for 36 years and a dear friend for 50 years. This place is about 45 minutes south of Prague, and we have recorded all of our albums here. We have created our music together here. It's in a town called Nikovice. And today, after months and months of not seeing each other and not playing, we're rehearsing a few things for an event. And in this COVID time, it's really great. I'm really looking forward to getting back to music and to seeing Martin. So, let's go. Hey! Martin! Ciao. Long time no see. Yeah. Come in. So, I want to introduce you to Martin Kratochvil. Kratochvil.
That's me.
So we're up here in Martin's study, not yet in the professional studio downstairs, because we always do our rehearsing here. Beautiful view of the town and light from every corner. But I want to tell you how we first met and how we first started playing together, because it's a great story and it's true. First, I met Martin in 1971. What year is it now? 2021? 50 years.
Woo!
Yeah, 50 years ago. Martin was playing in a legendary Prague jazz club called Reduta. It still exists. And in 1971, Martin was the only person playing jazz rock fusion. He is considered the person who brought jazz rock, you know, the music like Weather Report, John McLaughlin, Chick Corea. Martin heard that abroad and brought it to behind the Iron Curtain. And his group, Jazz Q Praha, was really famous. They were like rock stars in the 70s. And I went to the Reduta Jazz Club in 1971, having just come here to join Helena, who would then become my wife. And we heard from a common acquaintances. This great group was playing down there at the jazz club, and we went there, and I was just amazed. There was 4 of them, Martin on electric piano and Moog synthesizer. There was a wonderful bass player, now not alive anymore, a great guitar player and drummer. And right after the first set, I ran up and just said, how do you do this? How do you play this music? Where do you get it all? And we had this great conversation with Martin, and I didn't play with him yet, and yet we started our friendship. And then first, let me just ask Martin, because we're sort of at the beginning. You were the first person from behind the Iron Curtain to be allowed to go to Berklee College of Music in Boston. When was that?
It was 1976. Mm-hmm. Not actually the first one, yeah. But there was Miroslav Vitoš.
Oh yes,
ahead of me, and Jan Hammer. Mm-hmm. But they none of them came back at all. So yeah. I was the first one to come back.
Right. Yeah. And just up until that time, so you were a star with Jazz Q. You had started this recording studio downstairs already.
No.
That
was after I came back from the States.
Yeah.
When I bought this house and built the studio.
Yeah. And we're going to do an episode just with you and on Berklee and on your life, which is so fascinating. But for now, just because I'm from Cambridge, the Boston area, and would go visit my parents in those days. So I met Martin even when he was in Berklee. We kept up a friendship. And then it turned out I came here to then Czechoslovakia, communist Czechoslovakia, on a fellowship to study. And Martin had a program in a sort of coffee house down in the center of Prague, Malostranska Beseda. And every month he would invite guests and just talk about their music. He invited me to talk about my music, and then I was writing this sort of academic music, the kind some people say that nobody ever wants to listen to, very, very complex. And But I brought my guitar with me. And so at a certain point, I said, I want to show you people in the audience that blues is the international language. So I'm going to ask Martin to go to the piano. And I said, Martin, have we ever played together?
We haven't.
Yes, we haven't. And it was true. And in fact, you hadn't even been playing the grand piano for years because you were into electronics. And I said, okay. I said, let's do a blues. Let's do a kind of beboppy blues in G. I remember I said in G. I'm going to count it off and let's go. We've never played together. Are you ready? Let's try it. Okay. A one, a two, a 1, 2, 3. The ending we even did better back then. So after that, it was like I used to say, it was like love at first chord. But I think what really...
At first chord?
Yeah, at first chord. Love at first chord. But it was actually the second chord, because what really binds musicians together and what has helped us to have this rapport that we've continued now for 36 years is rhythm. I think rhythm. If you take all the elements of music, melody, rhythm, harmony, texture, rhythm is in everything. I mean, rhythm, even if you're playing drums and there's not much melody and harmony, there's music because rhythm. And rhythm actually is at the base of melody, because the reason when you play a note, the reason that note is D is that it is vibrating at the same frequency all the time. So rhythm is everything. And I think we somehow had this rhythm.
And not everybody. I mean, I'm going to add something to it, But you are a special guy who would keep rhythm like slightly backward. I would say, it's not, you cannot count it mathematically, but it's felt to be sitting on beat, while most of the, well, maybe it's a generalization which is too courageous, but the Slavonic people may tend to be like ahead of just pushing, you know what I mean? So you would be different from the rest of the guitar players, although nowadays it's not so apparent, but you are the guy who would sit on the beat, for God's sake, all the time, properly, and not push forward.
You know why? Because I never played with drummers. I don't like drums, so I gotta provide it all myself. And just back to the story. Then we'll get back to this. Is really interesting. So we played just that little blues, and then the audience didn't want to hear any more of my lecture. Didn't want to hear any more of my recorded music. So we figured out a couple tunes, and then a week later, Martin calls me and says, "I've got a tour arranged in Moravia, 10 concerts." So that's how we started. And in the communist days, we played a lot. Now let's go back to this. I love what you said about the rhythm, because also even this guitar was born out of our duo, this great 7-string guitar, because we didn't have a bass player. And so I needed my thumb to play the bass. So, and I actually love accompanying almost more than soloing. Let's play some. Let's play Powietrzy. Yeah, this is The Breeze. Remember that one? We haven't played in so long. No one. So, since 1985, it's been 36 years, and we've played thousands of concerts in really interesting places, like all over the world. An amphitheater in Nicosia, Cyprus. We played in the Village Gate in New York. We played in the outpost of Albuquerque, New Mexico. We played in the Gasteig Philharmonic Hall in Munich. So lots of places.
Jerusalem?
Tel Aviv. Yes,
Tel
Tel
Aviv.
Aviv. Yeah. So what has kept us so vibrant as a duo? I think it's kind of similar to what keeps a marriage together, which is two contrasting personalities. Each one of us fulfills what the other doesn't. So, like Martin, you came from this, this energetic, jazz rock, everything, volume up and simple rhythms and drums and popping bass lines, and you really were attracted to that. You've always been this sort of like
not always,
the young,
not always, but mostly.
it's like the young, the go forward energy. Martin used to fly his own plane. He's climbed 8,000 meter peaks, that kind of energy. And I was more the yin, kind of pulling back. And maybe that even is true with the way I kind of ground the rhythm in the background, and I love accompaniments. And so I came from a background of even classical guitar and the more cerebral music or quiet American blues. But somehow these two genres, the jazz rock and my roots guitar, met in this area of jazz, in our own style jazz, of which we have written our own pieces. We do very few pieces of others. Mostly.
Tell us how you used to call our music.
Yeah, that's right. I hated the word jazz because jazz brings up the idea of these saxophone players playing 20-minute solos in a smoky club, and say this is folk music. This is. In the 80s, I said it was folk music of the 1980s, but now I call it folk music of the 21st century. And it is
That's
that,
even
yes.
better.
So, what do you think? You agree about like what has kept us together for so long?
Yeah, maybe this is it. Yeah. I mean, it's true that we are musically a little bit different, and that it's also true that you fulfill the accompaniment. Like if the jazz player, if orthodox jazz player would say accompaniment, you would think of bass and drums, But it's like Eckermann is all of it, this string is the top,
the bass player. Yeah.
And it's not only bass and drums, but we fulfill these melodies which between the top and the bottom, so it's nice texture which you can create, and not only in this context of our acoustic playing, but also when you played with the electric, we made many CDs as you mentioned already. So in Letopist, it's semi, it's a jazz group or rock group and plus acoustic guitar, and it's kind of mixed all together. And in this case, you play this, you create this middle wave between the top soloists and then the rhythm section.
We do now often play with percussion player, but in those, not a drummer, a kind of ethnic percussion player. We'll have him on a later session too. But the duet of guitar and piano is not usual because they're both, they're both harmony instrument. They both do everything. So usually
struck strings.
Yes.
Strings.
And I think both of us had, like you use this word, intertwined. And I used to like about our music, sometimes you couldn't tell who was soloing and who was accompaniment. You just heard that like melodies came out. And obviously one of us was doing the solo, but the other was doing such interesting things below. And what I like even better is when you can't tell what's improvised and what's written.
That's what I'm saying. This is the most, courageous, and it's an adventure to play in that open kind of atmosphere where nobody knows who is playing solo and who is playing in what key, in what rhythm, and everything is open. Yeah. So I think this is this is where we are best at, actually. Or at least I feel best. I feel like free, and I feel like really fulfilling or flying with music, in this
Let's do,
context.
Because that's how I feel too. You know how we start Paloma with this free introduction around it? Let's do it.
We do it, but I want to say something. Somehow, if you would dictate yourself that now you will be free and blessed by gods and by gods of music, you can make it. And when you just switch off the lights, as we used to do it in the studio at night, and you don't expect anything. You are not after anything. Yeah. You just want to express the spirit of the moment, the atmosphere of the second, and then it comes, unexpectedly. But
let's expect the unexpected. And we could never do that again.
Yeah.
Be different every time.
We can only do it better.
Yeah. So now we're coming into the basement of Martin's house, which is this great recording studio, which, if I get it right, Martin, you actually started this studio under the communist times.
Right.
And you somehow put together equipment. I think you've got a couple of old tape recorders in the other room.
I started with a good mic, then I brought a 4-track from the United States.
Yeah.
And I developed as my financial, resources developed. But it actually sported, or it did record a couple of legendary albums here. Kole Yesterday, Michal Prokop, Iva Bitová, all the albums, and bunch of others. So it's almost a Abbey Road legendary.
Well, for me, it's legendary because of our recording here. I have a feeling of the sacredness to this place. Even though I don't like recording studios, I don't like the dead sound in the walls and the sort of all the electronics, but still you get this sense of when you're recording in the studio, it's just it's sacred time. You can be hours and nobody bothers you, and it's quiet time. Of course, in the 70s when you set it up, it didn't look like this.
Yeah. It was much bigger, right?
It was
a huge. There were machines here up to here.
Oh, good. There's a
relic of the past.
This here. Check this out.
Yeah,
this is a tape recorder.
Revox quarter-inch tape.
And you had a one with thick 1-inch tape as well. And I remember when we edited it, you would cut it with a razor blade. Yeah. So this is the control room. Now let's go into the room where we play. Around here, Martin has a Steinway piano. we did everything on this piano and this guitar. Hey, this poster, I'm going to show you this poster. And this is from, and this was taken right toward the beginning of our playing, Martin Kratochvil piano. This CSSR means Czechoslovak Socialist Republic. That's what this country's had 5 names since then. And USA guitar. So, my friends, I'm glad I could include you in this joyous reunion at Martin's, after almost a year of enforced separation. We need music in our life, and we need it live. So let's conclude with the end of Mañana, a bit of which we heard earlier in this video. It was recorded in one of my favorite Prague venues, Lucerna Music Bar, in the early 2000s. Note the valuable addition of our percussionist friend Imram Musazangi, whom we'll certainly visit in a future episode. Mañana means tomorrow, and it points to the music at the end of this long tunnel we're in today. Be well, my friends.
Děkujeme.